Step back in time to revisit one of television's most iconic Western series, The Lone Ranger. From thrilling horseback chases to unforgettable catchphrases, this classic show left a lasting mark on generations of viewers. But what happened to the stars who brought these legendary characters to life? Join us as we reveal the fascinating transformations of the cast, from their early days in black and white TV to where they are now in 2025. Some will surprise you, others will inspire you. Jay Silverhills, who portrayed Tonto in The Lone Ranger, was 37 years old when he began the role of the loyal Native American companion. Known for his calm demeanor, deep sense of justice, and stoic expressions, Silverhills gave Tonto a quiet dignity that was rare in 1950s television. Off-screen, however, Silverhills endured a tragic and conflicted life. Born Harold J. Smith on the Six Nations Reserve in Ontario, he faced constant typecasting after The Lone Ranger ended, with Hollywood offering few meaningful roles for Indigenous actors. He married twice. His first marriage to Edna Lickers ended in divorce after 5 years due to his alcohol abuse. His second marriage to Mary Diroma lasted longer and produced 4 children, Harold Jr., Penny, Joe, and Lisa, but was often marked by tension and financial stress. He suffered several strokes later in life and became increasingly isolated. His efforts to establish an acting school for Native American performers were underfunded and failed to gain traction. By the time he passed away in 1980 at the age of 67 from complications related to a stroke, he had just $30,000 in savings and lived in a modest Los Angeles apartment. Despite the hardships, Silverhills is remembered as a trailblazer who fought for representation, even as Hollywood slowly erased him. Clayton Moore, forever remembered as the masked hero of The Lone Ranger, was 34 when he first donned the black mask that would define his career. With a commanding voice and unwavering moral compass, Moore's portrayal embodied justice and righteousness. However, his life off-screen was one of professional and emotional turmoil. After being replaced temporarily by John Hart in the 1950s, Moore never fully recovered from the studio's betrayal, which bruised his pride and contributed to deep-seated anxiety. He married 4 times, first to Sally Allen, a short-lived union marred by infidelity, and later to Connie Benson, with whom he had a daughter, Dawn. That marriage ended in a bitter divorce that drained much of his finances. Moore's later marriages, to Jean Medley and then to Loretta Bell, were strained by his obsessive public persona as the Lone Ranger, which he refused to abandon even after legal threats from the rights holders. He struggled with depression in the 1970s, often retreating into reclusive behavior. At the time of his death in 1999 at age 85 from a heart attack, his estate was worth approximately $500,000, largely from personal appearances and memorabilia sales. Though deeply flawed, Moore remained beloved by fans who saw in him the values he tried desperately to live up to. John Hart, who took over as the Lone Ranger for a brief period during Moore's absence, was 36 when he first stepped into the role. His version of the masked man was quieter, more restrained, and ultimately met with mixed reception, which deeply affected Hart's confidence. After his short tenure on the show, he found it difficult to escape the shadow of the role, leading to a stunted acting career with sporadic appearances in westerns and low-budget films. Married once to actress Patricia Mannion, their 45-year union seemed solid from the outside but was burdened by long separations and financial struggles. They had 2 children, Jack and Lorraine, but Hart was often absent, missing milestones while chasing diminishing acting gigs. His quiet demeanor masked a growing resentment toward Hollywood, which he felt discarded him. In the 1980s, Hart declared bankruptcy and sold much of his memorabilia to cover debts. He spent his final years in a modest home in San Bernardino, battling Parkinson's disease and declining vision. He died in 2009 at the age of 91. His estate was estimated at under $100,000, most of which was left to his children. Though often overlooked, Hart's portrayal remains a footnote in TV history marked by quiet tragedy. Lane Bradford, who portrayed countless henchmen and rugged outlaws in The Lone Ranger, was 27 when he began appearing in the show. His tough guy persona made him a reliable character actor, yet it also boxed him into typecast roles. Despite appearing in over 250 films and shows, Bradford never broke into leading parts, a disappointment he never fully overcame. He married nightclub singer Dottie Mitchell in 1948, and though they had 2 sons, Greg and Tyler, their marriage was turbulent and ended in divorce after a decade, mainly due to his explosive temper and alcoholism. He later married wardrobe assistant Nina Parrish, but that too ended in separation. His relationships with his children were strained, especially after a DUI incident in 1968 that injured a pedestrian and led to a costly lawsuit. Bradford struggled financially, often living paycheck to paycheck. His health deteriorated quickly due to years of alcohol and stress. He died in 1973 at the age of 50 from a heart attack while filming a low-budget western. At the time of his death, he had less than $10,000 to his name, and no will. Bradford's legacy is one of talent overshadowed by personal demons and unfulfilled promise. Bill Ward, who appeared in various background roles such as henchman and townsfolk in The Lone Ranger, remains an obscure figure in Hollywood history. Likely in his early 30s during the show's peak, Ward never achieved lasting fame or received a single credit with speaking lines. After The Lone Ranger, he tried unsuccessfully to pursue acting full-time but was forced to take on a series of odd jobs: bartender, security guard, and eventually night janitor in a Burbank studio. He was briefly married to diner waitress Joan Elkins, but their union lasted only 4 years and ended without children. Little is known of his later years, though some reports suggest he struggled with depression and homelessness in the late 1970s. By the early 1980s, Ward had vanished from public records, with rumors of his death surfacing around 1985, though no official death certificate was ever located. If alive at that time, he would have been in his mid-60s. He died penniless and forgotten, leaving behind no known estate or heirs. Bill Ward's story reflects the anonymity of many extras, faces that filled the screen but lived lives that passed unnoticed and unremembered. Chuck Courtney, who portrayed Dan Reed, the Lone Ranger's loyal and eager nephew, was 22 years old when he stepped into the role that brought him brief fame. His portrayal captured youthful idealism and a desire to prove himself in the shadow of his legendary uncle. Despite early promise, Courtney's career never regained the momentum it had during the Lone Ranger era. He struggled to transition out of typecast roles and battled alcoholism throughout his adult life. He married his high school sweetheart, Laura Bennett, in 1955, and they had 2 children, David and Christine. However, the marriage crumbled under financial strain and Courtney's erratic behavior, ending in divorce in 1969. His relationship with his children remained distant. They were largely raised by Laura's second husband. Courtney's depression deepened in the 1980s when acting work dried up completely. He was involved in several failed business ventures, including a Western memorabilia shop that closed within a year. Isolated and burdened by debt, he died by suicide in 2000 at the age of 69. At the time of his death, his estate was worth less than $50,000. Though largely forgotten by Hollywood, fans of the classic Western still remember his youthful charm and dedication to the role that once made him a household name. Mickey Simpson, often cast as hulking villains or gruff lawmen in The Lone Ranger and countless westerns, brought a commanding physicality to the screen. Standing over 6 feet tall and weighing nearly 250 pounds, his sheer presence shaped his career. Born in 1913, Simpson found steady work but rarely escaped the shadow of his typecast roles. Off-screen, his life was equally restricted. He married aspiring actress Vivian Kern in 1948, but their relationship was marred by constant arguments and long separations due to his filming schedule. They had 1 son, Michael Jr., who struggled with drug addiction and later severed ties with both parents. The marriage ended bitterly in 1960. Financially, Simpson was never secure. Despite appearing in over 100 films and television episodes, he earned modest pay and lacked long-term contracts or residuals. His final years were marked by health problems, including heart disease and diabetes. He died in 1985 at the age of 71 from congestive heart failure. His estate, reduced by medical debt and poor investments, was valued at just under $100,000. He died alone in a rented home in California, surrounded only by faded headshots and memorabilia from a career that once promised stardom but delivered only typecasting and loneliness. House Peters Jr., who could effortlessly switch between noble heroes and cunning villains, was 30 when he began appearing in The Lone Ranger, bringing complexity and emotional depth to every role. Despite being a second-generation actor, his father was a silent film star. Peters Jr. lived in the shadow of early Hollywood glory. He married dancer Eloise Grant in 1942, and they had 3 children, Stephen, Linda, and Mark. The marriage endured but was fraught with financial stress and recurring infidelity rumors. His post-Lone Ranger years were marred by a lack of compelling roles, forcing him into minor guest appearances on television shows and stage performances that paid little. He once opened a small acting studio, which failed within a year due to low enrollment and his declining health. He experienced several tragic losses, including the early death of his son Mark in a car accident and the long mental illness of his daughter Linda. Yet, he remained a deeply spiritual man, often speaking of redemption. He passed away in 2008 at the age of 92 from pneumonia complications. His estate, bolstered slightly by family inheritance, was estimated at $300,000. Peters Jr. lived modestly until the end, remembered as an actor of integrity whose kindness off-camera left a deeper mark than many of his roles. John Kasein, frequently cast as ruthless outlaws in The Lone Ranger, had an intimidating screen presence matched by a volatile personal life. Born in 1918, Kasein thrived in westerns, always the face of danger with a glint of menace in his eyes. However, behind the scenes, he battled severe mood disorders, which often led to altercations on set. He married nightclub singer Dora Fields in 1947, and they had one daughter, Amelia. But Kasein's increasing dependence on alcohol and constant infidelity drove Dora to leave him in 1955. His custody battle over Amelia drained him emotionally and financially, resulting in estrangement from his daughter for the rest of his life. After The Lone Ranger, roles became scarce, and his reputation for being difficult preceded him. He briefly tried writing screenplays, none of which were produced. In 1961, after years of financial ruin, Kasein died in a suspicious car crash at age 42. Many believed it was suicide, although it was ruled accidental. He left behind just $12,000 and a string of unpaid debts. Kasein's name rarely appears in retrospectives, but his raw intensity left a fleeting impact on classic Western television history. John Ducet, known for his authoritative portrayals of military officers, judges, and lawmen in The Lone Ranger, brought gravitas and strength to each role. Born in 1921, Ducet had a booming voice and commanding presence that made him a go-to character actor for nearly 3 decades. He married schoolteacher Rose Darnell in 1944, and they had 4 children, Thomas, Eleanor, Jack, and Marie. Though the family appeared stable from the outside, Ducet's relentless work schedule and secret gambling addictions strained the marriage. Rose filed for separation twice before reconciling, but they remained emotionally distant until his death. After the Western genre waned, Ducet's career declined sharply, and he took on lesser roles in low-budget TV shows. He faced 5 major life crises: bankruptcy in 1975, a stroke in 1981, the overdose death of his son Jack, a brief battle with throat cancer, and the foreclosure of his family home. Despite these trials, he was known for his stoicism and quiet professionalism. He died in 1994 at age 73 from heart failure. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at approximately $150,000. Though never a leading man, Ducet's body of work remains a testament to the era of hard-working, underappreciated character actors. Harry Lauder, who often portrayed clean-cut, heroic figures in westerns, brought a rugged sincerity to every role, including his memorable appearances in The Lone Ranger as various lawmen and townsfolk. Born in 1914, Lauder entered Hollywood with dreams of stardom but often found himself relegated to supporting roles. After his time on The Lone Ranger, his career slowly declined, and he struggled with typecasting that limited his opportunities. He married his college sweetheart, Joan Temple, and they had 2 children, David and Melissa, but the couple divorced in 1962 amid accusations of infidelity and long separations due to Lauder's erratic work schedule. His relationship with his children was strained, particularly after he relocated to a remote cabin in Oregon in the late 70s. Lauder battled depression, financial instability, and alcoholism in his later years. He suffered a heart attack in 1985, survived, but his health continued to deteriorate. By the time of his death in 1990 at age 76, Lauder was living in near anonymity. His estate, once modestly valued at $150,000, had dwindled significantly due to poor investments and medical expenses, leaving behind less than $20,000. Though largely forgotten by the industry he once adored, die-hard Western fans continued to admire his understated charisma. Harvey, remembered for playing genial townsfolk and kind-hearted doctors on The Lone Ranger, had a face that seemed born for small-town America. Born in 1901, his cheerful demeanor belied a lifetime of private sorrow. His portrayal of the dependable townsman was informed by his desire to escape a turbulent real-life upbringing marked by an abusive father. After a brief stint in vaudeville, Harvey married theater actress Mildred Case in 1929. They had 1 son, Timothy, who tragically died in a car accident in 1958. The loss devastated the couple. Mildred fell into a deep depression and died by suicide in 1961. Harvey never remarried. Though he continued acting through the 1960s, his career lost momentum, and he turned to alcohol to cope with loneliness. Friends recalled him wandering the streets of Burbank late at night, murmuring lines from old scripts. In his final years, he lived in a modest assisted living home, largely forgotten by Hollywood. He died in 1985 at age 84 from complications of pneumonia. His estate was worth an estimated $40,000, mostly in the form of royalties from syndicated reruns. Despite the tragic turns in his personal life, Harvey's warm presence remains preserved in countless classic westerns. Richard Crane, who portrayed eager, sincere young men, had a boyish charm that made him an ideal fit for his various roles in The Lone Ranger. Born in 1918, he took on multiple characters in the series throughout the 1950s, often embodying idealistic deputies or earnest settlers. Crane's rising fame culminated in his starring role in Rocky Jones' Space Ranger, but the spotlight quickly faded. Behind his clean-cut image was a deeply troubled man plagued by insecurity and substance abuse. He married dancer Marlene Brandt in 1949, and they had 2 sons, Michael and Andrew. The marriage was passionate but toxic, marked by jealousy and violent arguments. After 2 separations, they divorced in 1964. Crane's career nosedived, and by the late 60s, he was performing in dinner theaters and local commercials to make ends meet. Suffering from chronic depression and feeling abandoned by the industry, he died by suicide in 1969 at just 50 years old. His death shocked the few close friends he still had. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at a meager $12,000, mostly tied up in unpaid royalties and personal belongings. Though he died young, his hopeful on-screen presence remains a bittersweet reminder of a life unfulfilled. John Cliff, who played various supporting roles on The Lone Ranger, brought a grounded authenticity to every performance. Born in 1918, Cliff was never a headliner but remained a familiar face in dozens of westerns. A former stuntman, he transitioned into acting with the help of a few well-placed friends. Cliff married costume designer Helen Barris in 1942, and they had 3 children, Nancy, Robert, and Jill. The family faced financial stress throughout the 1950s and 60s, as Cliff's income was inconsistent and residuals were rare. Though he was deeply devoted to his family, Cliff's mood swings and untreated PTSD from World War II service put strain on his marriage, which ended in 1971. His children described him as both loving and emotionally distant, a man haunted by the past. After retiring in the late 70s, Cliff lived in seclusion in Arizona, rarely making public appearances. He suffered several strokes and required long-term care in his later years. He died in 2001 at age 82 from complications related to heart failure. His estate, consisting of a modest home and minor investments, was estimated at $85,000. Cliff never sought fame, and in the end, he remained as humble and steady as the background characters he so often portrayed. Who is your favorite character from The Lone Ranger? How does it feel knowing that some of the actors are no longer with us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future uploads. Thank you for your supper.